My name's Alan Ainsworth. I work for Redline Studios. We've been involved with the design of the new Gold Star, which is being launched at Birmingham at the moment. And just going to take you through some of the design kind of language, the design cues that we take on board at Redline, and what made this project so special. So really the first thing that we looked at was getting to know the brand. The BSA brand is obviously one of the oldest, if not the oldest brand, British brand around. Hasn't been with us for the best part of 50 years, so we needed to make sure that we're resurrecting it, sympathetic to the older generations, but also introducing it to a new generation. So that was the first trick of the project, if you like. The next part of the project is really getting to know the different models. BSA has a huge lineup of models, as any BSA enthusiast will know. And the Gold Star is probably the most well-known and recognised of them. My own uncles had Bantams, always aspired to a Gold Star. That was the aspirational machine. So before we start the project, we've got to know enough about not only the brand, but also the model. The Gold Star was around for many years, probably peaked in the late 60s with the DB34 engine. And really the engine design, along with the stance and the rest of the bike, is something that I was heavily involved with. So maybe if I run through a little bit of the engine and what we took on board, that might be of interest. So one of the main things with the engine is the DB34 engine, an iconic engine, but it has to obviously sit within the rest of the bike correctly as well. So we worked very hard to make sure that we had this upright stance. The Goldie was famous for being a single, and obviously we had to make sure that we got that into this machine as well. So if we talk a little more about the engine, obviously the DB34 classic pre-unit engine, in that the gearbox and the engine were separate elements. Obviously that's slightly different these days. It was an air-cooled unit back in the day. This is a liquid-cooled unit, so we're bringing it into the modern era. But at the same time, we have to make sure that we keep the essence of the original machine and the essence of the original heart of the machine. So the inclination of the engine was really important. The classic signs and finishes, which are different over each of the bikes. So this is the premium model. So we've got the fully polished components on both covers and the clutch cover. Different finishes on different bikes in order to be able to delineate them through the range. And we're picking up on classic kind of signatures of the machine. So you can see we've got the polished parts, polished kind of different finishes on the cylinder head and the barrel. Cam covers buried under the new tank. And then we've got the classic, obviously single port, with it being a single machine. Obviously the swept exhaust system, the header pipes leading into the classic pea shooter. Really important to keep that as well. And as well as the rest of the looks and the aesthetics of the machine, have to make sure that it behaves itself. It acts as a single should do. So plenty of torque in there, plenty on the range, and obviously it's got to sound like a classic single. So they were some of the tricks and some of the real kind of challenges, if you like, before we started the machine, and I think we've managed to do that. So as I say, if we pick up on some of the finer details, obviously the old gearboxes are on the other side now, so we have the selector shaft exiting on the left, rider's left. But we make use of those styling features in terms of making sure we can get it in there sympathetically. So in this case, it's a sprocket cover. Cast parts where we can get them, highly polished. Obviously, we've got to try and ape what happened with the original DB34 and the original Gold Star. And really that's synonymous throughout the whole machine. We had to make sure that we maintain those styling signatures. So even things like the fuel tank badge, it wasn't going to be enough not to pay attention to the jewel in the crown, if you like. Classic stance on the fuel tank, classic teardrop tank. The old Gold Stars had the classic polished and painted features with the pinstriping. Had to make sure they were in there. But at the same time, we're bringing it into the modern day. So that was quite a challenge from a design perspective. But I think we've managed it. We've managed to capture that classic silhouette and bring it back to a modern audience, whilst giving, you know, the modern day features that you would expect on a modern motorbike.